Our next guest, actor and writer Julia Hales, has fought to make independent decisions her whole life. Here she is, appearing in her award-winning play, which takes as its starting point her lifelong ambition to star in her favourite TV show, Home and Away.
Does anyone know how many chromosomes that mosquito have? Anyone? Mosquitoes, 6. My horse have 64. You guys have 46. Lauren and myself have 47. So that means I've got something extra to you. Now, this little baby is me. 47 chromosomes. Aren't I cute? These two are my sisters, Megan and Amy. And these two attractive people are my mum and dad. Mum, this play is for you. You know we belong together.
I'm pleased to say Julia Hales joins us now from Dunsborough, Western Australia. Hello, Julia, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, and you?
Very well, thank you. Tell me the story of the play, You Know We Belong Together. How did you work out what you wanted to say when you were writing it?
Well, it kind of came out of me because I wanted to have, with my voice as a story of You Know We Belong Together. And so I collaborated with a friend of mine named Fearnley, and so she's a script writer. So everything that I want, that she kind of put on her computer.
And I know that you're a wonderful actor. Did you ever get nervous in front of that whole crowd? Because often you weren't reading from a script, you were just talking. Yeah,
well, we did had a bit of a script, but it's for my words. But I did have a cue card just to see where I was up to, but I just kept on going.
Oh, you're an amazing actor. Now, we all need supporters. Tell me about your mother and how she helped you to succeed.
Yeah, so my mum, well, first of all, she's my best friend in this whole wide world, and she wanted me to be the most reliable person. She always wanted to make sure that I get me out to, sorry, I'm just blabbing.
No, you're not. It's a wonderful story about your mum. I loved in the documentary The Upside that's on iView, your dad and you talk about your mum who's passed away now, and she was a wonderful woman. Can you tell us the story of what happened when you came home and said, I want to live alone?
Well, I think I was about 16 years old, and I went to my mum and dad saying that I want to live independently. And so Mum always told me, my sweetheart, darling, you have to be 21 to move out. And so she got me ready. She made sure I went to TAFE to make sure I'm ready to be independent. And then after, when I turned 21, I moved in my own apartment in Subiaco for nearly 20 years.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Tell me about The Upside. You talked to women in that documentary who decided not to have babies with Down syndrome. What message did you want to share about living with Down syndrome?
Well, it was hard hearing that woman that doesn't want to have a Down syndrome baby. But I know it was her choice and it's her body, and I do kind of respect that. But I also want to give a message out there to see people like us as the way they see me, because I'm part of in that community, and that's what I want for people with all sorts of disabilities and Down syndrome to make wonderful stories. So, yeah.
Wonderful, Julia. Stay with us and I'll talk to the others and then I'll come back to you. Sam, you live with a disability. You've got kids on the autism spectrum, is that right?
Yeah.
Where do you draw that line between, I want to protect you, but there's dignity in you taking risks?
Yeah, it's a really difficult thing because, well, I was at the hospital with my child, my youngest child who is on the spectrum, proudly, at 4 o'clock this morning because he had to be rushed to hospital after eating some nuts, which he's allergic to. And so, you know, when your kids leave home and you think they've left home, but they haven't. So there's a thing. And so there's a thing of, you know, do I go to the hospital as a mum, you know, because the young person is now living by himself and he is, you know, adult like yourself, Julia, and you know, where do you go with that? What's the line of providing some support and not providing some support? So it is a thing that, you know, when he wanted to move out, it's like, yeah, he's the age to move out. Sure, off you go. And then there's that terror of wanting to be overprotective and making sure nothing goes wrong. But if you do that, you don't give anybody the chance to learn, you know. So the dignity of risk is about having the same experiences as everybody else does, good or bad. Because otherwise, how do you know to cope with those things if things go wrong?
And Julia, you've got a dream to be on Home and Away. That film's in Sydney. Is part of your dream to move to Sydney?
Well, yes, because that's one of my biggest dreams, that I wanted to move over there to be on Home and Away, because I am a professional actress and I've got a casting agency able to help me to get to that point. But I do collaborate with other people too, like my family, my friends. I've got people from, like, my producer of Simone Pavel. I've got people with Black Swan. So, yeah, I've got a lot of support network.
And how do your family feel about the idea that you'd come all the way to Sydney?
Well, I actually went to Sydney probably early 2018 to do a bit of filming on Home and Away as part of You Know We Belong Together. And so I got to meet some of the cast and they really enjoyed me there. And it feels like I really belong.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, if you keep talking about it on television, they might write a role for you, we're hoping. Topaz, talk to me about the dignity of risk. We're really just talking about self-determination, aren't we? That's what we talk about in Indigenous communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sadly, there's this low expectation around certain groups which people might assume are vulnerable. But the reality is that I've seen some of the most high-performing individuals throughout my career who have taken that risk and put themselves forward. And in a society where traditionally we might say no, where I've started seeing companies say yes to that, just the amazing steps that those individuals have taken. People who've been long-term unemployed, homeless, and even on the other lens where people have maybe been mature age carers for parents, just putting themselves out there is... it's a really difficult thing, and the constant setbacks of just no's, but for no real understanding why, I think that is a real challenge. But when we start to look at it a little bit differently and understand that actually we need to start taking risks on people as well, I think that shows what can happen. And there's an incredible amount of leaders in the accessibility in the Indigenous community who people have decided to recognise that they are, equals and offer amazing skills and experiences.
Kurt, there's a risk for any endurance athlete. Like, I find endurance athletes, so your marathon, I pulled up on my phone here, I'll have to search it up, the ridiculous number of gold medals and silver medals and world records, 3 Paralympic gold, 4 world championships, 2 Commonwealth golds, and that's just in the gold column. There's enormous risks to your body in doing that. For anyone.
There's a risk in actually sitting down and saying that I want to be the best in the world. There's a risk of that some people aren't allowed to even throw that goal out there because we don't want that person to be upset if it doesn't take place. The physical risk is something that you constantly have to manage. The idea of going and doing a marathon and averaging a heart rate at 195 beats per minute.
Hang on, 195 beats per minute for how long?
1 hour and 32 minutes. Oh. Cresting out at 211 beats per minute. The risk in that of pure, standing on the edge of a knife of life is quite heavy. But you spend years getting it ready to deal with that risk. because you've been able to incrementally deal with risk over time. And risk, I feel, is a beautiful thing. Risk is the thing that makes life worth living in some cases. It's like, it's being able to find yourself in that risk. And when I always think about people with disabilities and their families, that they have, when disability is brought into their family, they have had to fight for everything. They've fought for their child to go to school. They've fought for their child to get services. They've fought for their child to feel like they're equal to their peers. But then sometimes they don't want their child to go through that potential negative experience, and they may shelter them away from engaging with my kids, who are non-disabled kids, who deserve to have people with disabilities risking their experience, and my kids deserve to share in that risk with them. They deserve to have people with disabilities, all wide-ranging disability, risking an interaction with the rest of the community with them. So that my children and your kids, or whoever they may be, learn from all variation of life, and they learn that that risk is worth it because we get to be friends with a kid with autism or Asperger's, or who is non-verbal, who has ADD. My kids, me, you, we all benefit when our kids with disabilities are given risk.
Julia, do you ever get worried or fearful that you won't be able to achieve your dream?
No, not at all. I mean, I don't get scared. I just follow my dreams and just see how that goes. But as part of that dream, I always wanted to take my show of You Know We Belong Together over to London and into Edinburgh over there. But some reason, because we're supposed to go this year, but because of COVID, we had to postpone it. But that was part of one of my dreams, to have that, to be over there.
And that would have been wonderful, because everybody in the cast, did everyone in the cast have Downs or have an intellectual disability?
No, they all had Down syndrome. So there was like Pat and Tina, Lauren, and also the juniors, Mark and Melissa. They're both married.
Right, we've frozen on her. We'll come back to Julia. We'll come back to Julia in just a moment.
It's 2020.
Yes, that is the risk of 2020. Let's take a risk on Rebecca, because she's also on Skype. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. It's interesting. You sit on the board of healthcare organisations, and healthcare organisations talk about the duty of care, and sometimes that can limit the dignified risks that people want to take. Do you spend more time on the board talking about duty of care or allowing people to take risks?
Well, we talk about that conundrum because there can be some situations where we might be asked to do things that we might consider to be too risky, but I think there's a stronger sense of people have the right to consent to what's happening. That's the real key to it. And I know that it's close to the end, but as an older member of the panel, what an extraordinary thing to reflect on how diverse the experience of everybody tonight has been. And when I was growing up, it was very monolithic, monocultural, and people of difference weren't seen. And now, you know, here we have on national television all sorts of people talking. It's just, and that's something to be proud of, I think. It's really fantastic.
I think Julia's back with us now. Sorry about that, Julia. Tell me the story that you told at the end of The Upside about the joy and wonder of having people with Down syndrome. Why is it wonderful to have people with Down syndrome in our community?
Well, first of all, it would be fantastic to have people with Down syndrome in the world, to show everyone out there who they can be and who they can do. And so they're very gifted and talented people, and they just want to share their stories out there. Yeah. And do you ever feel like you're changing the world by showing people what Down syndrome people can do? Yes. I have changed the world. Because I like to have this world better for everyone to live in, and also to have people with Down syndrome is to follow their dreams and make it happen, and they will have a lot of support as well. Yeah.
Kurt, isn't she wonderful?
Amazing. And we needed to see Julia for the last 20 years. You know, we needed to see our huge tapestry of talent in this country. It's not limited to the non-disabled group. there are people like Julia who has been able to create something that is just so beautiful. And if you see the show, if you haven't seen the show, watch it. It's incredible. But there is story after story that is just so unique and so strong and so beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about with the social model of disability. It's like how people like Julia can bring her genius, her on the stage, with the stories that she tells and her innate acting ability to the audience and indeed to Edinburgh when jolly COVID lets up.
Absolutely, and that's sometimes when I hear the old, the glory days or back to what we used to be, and I kind of think, what, the days where we were institutionalised, the days where Julia wasn't given that moment to create something so beautiful and productive for our community. What a golden age to live, that we have landed in a spot where we have been able to just share an experience with so many variations on life.
Yeah.
And how
and also,
powerful
can I
would it be to...
I think ask something. So, because when I did the back history of Down syndrome about the institution, it was really upsetting how they did it back then. But I'm so happy that they're not actually doing it now.
It's wonderful, and it's wonderful to see your face. Maybe final comment from Sam for tonight.
I just wanted to say it would have been so powerful for Julia as a young person to actually see herself represented on Home and Away. So the other thing is that we're quite often put up there telling our stories, but actually we need to be telling our stories to each other. And International Day of People with a Disability is about pride, being proud of who we are. And, for us seeing ourselves represented in, dolls, in clothes, in everything, but on television, and especially thank you for us being on the drum today.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Julia, it's wonderful to have you on. Come on again, even if Home and Away haven't got a part for you. I'm sure they will very soon. You're always welcome on the drum.